HTML, we have outputs. We have an output directive actually. We have an output element. Output element. This output element is having an ID. So it is having an ID. Output element is having an ID, some x, and the name is equal to x, and it will work for a plus b. It will work for a plus b. Output is an element. Output element is available, and generally, input elements are available. Input elements are available. There is an output element also. So generally, when I run this, you can see here. So we have n1 and n2. Now, generally, when we are entering a value here, suppose some 12 and 30, we need to emit the output addition of these two values. That means input is providing those values. On input, we have to emit the result of these values. The result can be emitted and displayed by using this output element actually. Output element. Generally in HTML, how you manage this is, you see, we have input and we have output. When user inputs anything inside the input, then what we do is the form can understand that there is a value inserted by using an event called onInput. That means if any value user inputs into any control, then onInput will fire up. OnInput will fire up. And what onInput will do is, it will collect the value. It will collect the value, and it can perform operation, and it can display the result. It should display the result in output. Output ID is x. So x dot value is equal to, it should get the value from a text box. But text box are usually string type. So we will use parsing technique. So parse int a dot value. So we are accessing a value, plus parse int b dot value. So that means the value from two text boxes is collected and converted into numbers, and it is displayed inside this output. Output is used for emitting the value. Output is used for emitting the value. Input is used for taking the value. This is a general HTML concept actually. So many times people who don't know, so this concept of HTML, for them it looks like Angular input output are something new actually. So they are not new, they are already there in HTML itself. HTML have input and HTML have output also. And you observe now, when form detects the input from the input elements, so what it will do is, observe here. So I will type here. So some value I am typing here 12, and another value I am typing 45, and you can see it returns the result. That means it returns the result. Output returns the result. So just here I am just defining, suppose the option like addition. So here it is displaying that addition here. That means I am typing here 10 and I am typing here 20. It will get that result. This is a general approach in HTML actually. And that is the reason in HTML you have a input element. So, and we have an output element. Input element's responsibility to take value and output elements responsibility to emit the value, and you need them here, so we have to use them here and we need to manage them here. So that means we have to get that values and use those values and define the values. So this is a general input and output activity, and this is there in Angular. So in Angular we use input, we use output. Input is used to collect the value and use the value, and output is used to emit the value. It is used to emit the value. So from parent component, if any data is coming to child component, then input is enough. Input can collect that value. But from child component, if you want to send some value to parent component, then again parent cannot have input. Then child component have to emit the value. That is emitted by using output. Output is used to emit the value. This is the approach we need to follow. Let's see how it can manage it. So how it can emit the value. And for that, actually, we need an event emitter. So we need an event emitter. So we need to create one event. On that event, we need to fire up this data. Let's do that. So it's a simple approach. We will see that. So let's see that here. Observe carefully here. Remember, first I am explaining only syntax based example. After that, we will implement in one real world example. First, we need to understand. So data is successfully coming. So data is successfully coming from parent to child. From child to parent, we need to send the data. Okay, let's see how we can send the data from child to parent. Now let's go to the child component. In the child component, so we are defining some message. So we are defining so hello. We are defining hello. Hello contains, so hello is a property, it contains hello from child. Okay, so it contains the message hello from child. I want to send this message to the parent. So if you want to send this message to the parent, that means I need to create a property which can emit this value. On a particular event, it should emit the value. I am creating a property message to parent. This must send this value to the parent element. That means it should emit. That means that it should use an event emitter. It should use an event emitter. We have to get event emitter from the Angular core library. That means first in the Angular core, so we have to import event emitter. This event emitter we have to use here. So we have to use the event emitter. That means it is of type event emitter. That means message to parent is of type event emitter, and event emitter can emit any type of value. It is a generic type. You remembered we learned about generics in TypeScript. It's a generic type. It can emit string, it can emit number, it can emit boolean. Currently I want to emit string, then I will create as a string type and allocate the memory new event emitter, string type of memory is allocated. That means event emitter. So message to parent. is message to parent is a custom event. So it is an event. Its purpose is to emit the value. And what kind of value it can emit? It can emit currently string value. That means it is an event. Message to parent is an event. This event can emit the value. It can emit the value. But important is anything you are trying to send outside. So emit sending the value as output, then you have to mark that with @output. You have to mark that with @output directive, which is expecting an value, then input, which is sending a value, then output. That means this message to parent should send a value. When it should send a value, which value it should send? So it should send this value, hello from child. It should send this value. Okay. When it should send the value, we have to tell some event here. So message to parent is a custom event. This event can emit value, but when to emit value, you have to tell. So what we will do is we will write a method. We will write a method here. Send value to parent. When this method fires up, it should send this message. So it should send this message to the parent. Then we have to use this dot, message to parent. It is a custom event. It should emit this dot hello. That value should be emitted. That means whenever send value to parent method is called, whenever you call this method, so this message to parent should emit. It is an event emitter. That means it is a custom event. This is a custom event. It should emit this value, hello from child. It should emit that value. That means we created an output property. Which can emit the value. But when it will emit the value, when this event will fire up, when this method will fire up. When to fire up this method, you have to write some logic. That means what we will do is, we will go to child component. Here, we will put a button. Here. And so this is send to parent button. So this button, so on click, will call the function send value to parent. That means when user clicks, you can see when user clicks this button, the button, so it will fire up this send value to parent. That means that send value to parent method will fire up. That method will use this event emitter. Through the event emitter, it will emit the value outside this scope. It will emit the value outside this scope. That means outside the parent, outside the child, it will emit the value. Now there must be parent. Parent should collect that value and use that value. Parent should collect that value and use that value. Parent should able to collect the value and use the value. That means now parent component should collect this value. Let's go to the parent component. In parent component, we will use MSG. It is an empty message. It should collect the value coming from child component. It should collect the value coming from the child. Then what we will do is, we will use a method here, get from child. So we are using this method. We are using that get from child. Now what should happen here is, so let's go to the parent component HTML file. Here child component is present. Child component is having an event. We created a custom event. The event name is message to parent. This is the event. That event we need to access here. How we can access events? Events. We will use a parenthesis and you see you have your own event now, message to parent. String count is a property. MSG is a property, but message to parent is not a property. It is an event. It is marked with output. That means it is an event. It emits the value by using event emitter. Event emitter. It is emitting this value. That means this is event argument actually. This is event argument. That means now message to parent is an event. This event will access this method. That means parent have a method get from child. So it will access that method. And what we will do is this message to parent is having an argument. That argument we have to collect here. You know how to access event arguments. By using $event, we can access the event arguments. That means message to parent is a custom event. This event is sending an argument. That argument we are collecting in the parent. That argument we are collecting in the parent. And in the parent, we are collecting that E argument. And we will display this dot message, this dot MSG is equal to that E. That means whatever the value is sent, that value is collected through this E and it is assigned to MSG. This MSG will be displayed in the parent. In the parent, what we will do is we will put that message somewhere here. We will put the message in the parent component. Here we are displaying the message. So we will put a paragraph here. We will put that message. We will put that message here. That means now what happens here is, so we click on send to parent. So a message is sent from child component to the parent component. You can see parent component is having hello from child. That happens when I click on this send to parent. When I click this, it has its own event. On that event, it is sending a value to the parent and parent is collecting that value and using that value. This is a very complex approach. It's very important. This is little bit confusion for a entry level. So for the first time when people are listening to this. So you don't need to worry. I will explain 2-3 more times with different examples. So you will get clarity on this. And this is where majority of your experienced Angular interviews are concentrated. That means this is where a lot of questions will come for experienced people in interviews related to Angular. And that means what is input, what is output, how data is transported from parent to child, how do we define custom events, what is event emitter, how it can emit the values. A lot of questions are asked related to this concept in real world interviews, especially for experienced people. You need to be very strong in understanding this approach. How do we collect the data from the parent? How we can send data from child to parent? This approach is very much important. Approach is important. So first time it looks little confusion because so you are listening to this for the first time. A lot of hierarchical issues will be there. From where to where data is sending, what is an event, how data is sent. So this we have to understand with some real world examples. Then we will get more clarity in handling this, right? How do we create? So message to parent is an event. And this event is emitting some value. Event can emit multiple values also. So it is emitting a value. That value is collected in the parent. This is the custom event. We created our own events. So this we will see with one real world example now. That means how we can create and how we can configure this with a real world example. This example I will post in the classroom, but this is just a syntactical example. So we will see one real world example working with this. That means one complete real world example how we can use our own events and work with them. That we will see in our next session, right? In our next session. So don't miss these 3-4 sessions. If you miss any specific session, so you will be very confused because we are continuing this topic for 3-4 sessions with a lot of hierarchy. So if you miss one session, you cannot understand the next session what is happening there. So that is very complicated. So that's the reason. So please don't miss these 3-4 sessions from here. So it is a continuous approach to understand the custom events and managing them. So in the next session, we will discuss about how to implement this in a real world example, how to create our own events. In the next session, we will see that. Emit is an English word which means emitting a value. Emit is an English word. You know, na? Emit, that means eject some values. It's an English word. Yeah, next session will be on Monday only, right?